Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I hope I am clearly visible and audible. Just confirm it once. Hello Shanavaz, hi Aviral, hi Shubham. Good evening. Thank you Utkarsh, thank you for confirming. So I hope your preparation is going well and I hope you've also been reading the newspapers very regularly. Yes? Good evening Avriti, Shalini. Hello Abhishek. Hi Azan, good evening. Hi Only Cat. Non-stop art. Interesting names. Hi Shreya. Hello Saurav. Thank you Only Cat. Happy to see you too in the session. Hello Anjali. Right. So, time and again, I try to cover philosophical topics with you, abstract topics with you, but then, the state of our world today is such that they ensure that, something or the other happens, something or the other so major happens that then I am compelled to cover it with you, right? So, hence today's topic, the threshold war. We'll learn what's the meaning of this threshold is that is currently going on between Israel and Iran, right? So today's piece comes from The Conversation. The Conversation is a news website. Now what they do is they curate articles that they claim have academic integrity but also journalistic flair. So they tend to be academic also in nature and journalistic also in nature, their articles. That's what they say. And this original article is approximately 1500 words. I have kind of distilled the main points and shortened it to 557 words for you. The genre is international relations, of course, because we are going to talk about the Israel-Iran war, right? Scooby, no, I mean, that's your call, but it's not essential to understanding today's editorial analysis, right? Hello, Kurt. Hi, Ulkesh. Hi, Astha. Academic articles, see, how are journalistic articles different from academic articles? That's a good question. So when you write in an academic journal, in an academic journal, who is your reader? Other experts of the same area. So you presume that they also have some baseline knowledge of the topic. So your language would be relatively difficult. You will use terms that you will not explain because you expect a certain level of understanding from people. You will be very rigorous in citing your sources. For every claim that you make, you will back it up with previous research. So that is the trait of academic articles. Journalistic articles, on the other hand, they are targeting people like you and me, masses, right? So because they are targeting masses, they on the other hand will explain various difficult words that they use, right? They'll not have very strict citation standards the way an academic article has, okay? And however, they'll stick to more of neutrality, unless let's say it's an opinion piece. Then of course there will be an argumentative piece before you, right? If it's an opinion piece. So that's the difference, okay? Thank you, Azan. Thank you so much. An RC passage on the same academic versus widely accepted critics. Oh, excellent, Aviral. Then you'd probably be able to relate to what we are talking about. Yes? Okay. Now, you all know that we have launched our R7 batch. So, in case any of your friends are thinking about joining the CAT 2025 prep, you should tell them to join it ASAP, right? And yes, let's come to today's topic. So, it is about the Middle East, of course, because this conflict is happening in the Middle East. Have you wondered why is the Middle East called the Middle East? Yes. Any ideas? Yes, Kurt. We are constantly doing that. Academics, yes, they tend to be closely gated, Aviral. But it is actually West Asia. These countries that I'm showing, you are currently able to see on your screen, this is West Asia and this is North Africa. So it is actually West Asia and North Africa. So why call them the Middle East? It's also called West Asia because Westerners named it. Absolutely correct. It's a highly Eurocentric name. Eurocentric means from the perspective of Europe. So because it is east of Europe, right? East of the European countries, that's why we call it the Middle East. Okay, so these nomenclatures also are not devoid of politics, right? Okay. Now, let's locate Israel, where it is on the Middle East map. This tiny country, I mean, not that tiny, but then tiny as compared to, let's say, Saudi Arabia, Iran, right? So here is Israel, right? And if you look at Iran, this is Iran, right? Very clearly visible. So this is the conflict. They are not even immediate neighbors, right? And yet they are in conflict. Yet there is a war happening, right? So we'll talk about these today. And of course, there are larger Middle East dynamics at play. I covered some of these dynamics with you in the 9th editorial analysis session. We talked about the politics of Middle East there. I think we talked about it in the context of Syria back then. I'm not sure. But yes, we did talk about the Middle East there. And that article was from the magazine Foreign Policy. So I think you can supplement today's discussion with this particular editorial. Right? Okay, and I'll change the color of my pen. This is ghastly. Right? Okay. So let's go to our article for the day. Okay. Read it once and then, we'll discuss it. Let's make it more of a discussion today. So read these 2 paragraphs and then let's discuss them. Yes. Done. All right. So here is the term threshold war, right? So there is this country that is on the threshold of nuclearization. What do we mean by nuclearization? Nuclearization, when a country is actually creating nuclear power, right, for the purpose of weaponization. That is what we mean by nuclearization here. Right? So let's just quickly read this because some of you are asking me questions such as deterrence framework. So I'll explain that here. So it says that, this is not just another Middle Eastern crisis. That's what the author says, right? It's a dangerous new chapter in nuclear rivalries. So today we'll look at it from the angle of a nuclear rivalry because that is what the present conflict primarily is. That has the potential to shape global proliferation risks. Proliferation of nuclear weapons. Okay, proliferation, a rapid increase in something of nuclear weapons for decades to come. Okay, so how is it a dangerous new chapter? Explained in the next paragraph. What began with Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and other targets on June 13, 2025 has now spiraled into the world's first full-scale example. So see, that's how it is a new chapter, because it's world's first full-scale example of what I, as an expert in nuclear security, call a threshold war. So now the author has very generously explained the term to us. A new and terrifying form of conflict where a nuclear weapons power seeks to use force to prevent an enemy on the verge of nuclearization from making that jump. As missiles continue to rain down on both Tehran and Tel Aviv, with hundreds dead in Iran and at least 24 killed in Israel, the international community is witnessing the collapse of traditional deterrence frameworks in real time. So, what are some of the traditional deterrence frameworks around nuclear power? Yes. Have you heard of NPT? The Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and India has always said that we'll not sign it because it is discriminatory. So it is a part of this deterrence, nuclear deterrence framework. To deter means to discourage someone from doing something. So NPT is aimed at that, right? All those countries that sign the NPT, they say that okay, we will not nuclearize, we will not make nuclear weapons. But the thing is, some countries already have nuclear weapons. So India says it's unfair to tell some other countries, no, you can't create nuclear weapons, you can't make them, right? They perhaps, these countries that are not nuclearized, need it for their self-defense. Okay, so this is a part of the deterrence framework. And moreover, the informal deterrence framework is that if two countries, they are both nuclear powers, they refrain from attacking each other, right? During the Cold War, it was called MAD, mutually assured destruction. That, if you attack me, dude, I also have nuclear weapons, you'll not be spared. So this is called MAD, mutually assured destruction. It is an informal part of this deterrence framework, right? Okay. Now, this is the introduction. The author is going to look at it from a nuclear lens. The author is saying that this Israel-Iran war is a threshold war and it's a new precedent, right? It's setting a precedent. Okay. All right, then let's read this bit. Read it yourself first, then we'll discuss. Done. So have you heard of a catch-22 situation? What is a catch-22 situation? For X to happen, Y has to happen. But for Y to happen, X has to happen. So it's a deadlock. It's a stalemate, right? So here also, there is a sort of a commitment trap, a sort of a catch-22 situation that is discussed here, right? Neither side is able to back out. There is a stalemate. Yes? So now see, the author is compared it to, traditional nuclear rivalries also. So when India and Pakistan recently, they had a conflict, they knew that neither of the parties would actually escalate it to a nuclear conflict because it was mutually assured destruction in that case. Right. Here, on the other hand, one party is nuclearized, the other is not. So, of course, the one that is not will feel, till the time I remain weak, the Israelis will keep on attacking me. Iran will feel that, right? And Israel, for its part, it knows that it can't permanently, stop Iran from becoming nuclearized. But it just wants to delay it. And to delay it, it will have to keep attacking it, right? So, this is another stalemate that they are locked in. So now, under this dynamic, now this is an important, why I highlighted this for you. There is a question on commitment trap later on, right? So read this bit carefully. So neither side can step back without accepting an intolerable outcome. Okay, and because of this, the consequences of this deadly logic, yes, that they are trapped in, these extend far beyond the Middle East. Why? Because tomorrow, any nation that is nuclearized can start a war on any nation that is not nuclearized. And then, as the conflict escalates, both the parties will not be able to back down. Yes? So that's why the logic extends far beyond the Middle East. Okay, now let's read this bit and let me know once you're done. All right, perfect. Now, so this is again important, the difference between preemption and prevention. Yes, preemptive. Tough read. No, the author has explained preemptive and preventive both to you. The author has not left it to you to understand it. What is a preemptive strike? So let's say you know that somebody is about to attack you. Now, you attack them first in order to, of course, stop them from attacking. That is a preemptive attack. So preemptive attack, this responds to imminent threats that you know are about to happen, like Israel's 1967 six-day war against Arab armies that were preparing to attack. They were preparing to attack Israel, right? So that was a preemptive strike. But this is not a preemptive strike because Iran was not preparing to attack Israel, right? In the near future, Iran did not have any such plans that it was preparing to attack Israel. This is a preemptive strike. It targets distant future threats when conditions seem favorable. Okay, so the conditions for Israel were favorable right now. Okay, because Iran stands weakened. Okay, Iran stands weakened. I would invite you to read more about axis of resistance that Iran has, these proxy militants that Iran has in the Middle East, and how the, collapse of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Yes, we talked about Syria in editorial 9. What that means for Iran actually stands weakened because of that. So the conditions are actually favorable for Israel to attack Iran right now. So it's a preventive strike. Okay, so it's not a preemptive strike like Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Okay, you can watch the movie Pearl Harbor if you haven't. Now, Israel's calculations in opting to strike build on the same erosion of international legal frameworks. तो अब ये किसका किया धरा है सब? देखो, अगर हम जियोपॉलिटिक्स हम अगर या इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस बहुत घुस कर देखें, उसमें लेयर्स में जाके देखें, वील रियलाइज अल्टीमेटली काफ़ी कुछ यूएस रशिया का ही किया धरा होता है, राइट? सो this again, if you know Israel's calculations, how has Israel got this courage to do this, to do something like this? Okay, it is built on the same erosion of international legal frameworks that has legitimized preemptive warfare since the United States military action in Afghanistan and Iraq after the September 11, 2001 attack, right? तो इन्होंने अपनी मिलिट्री भेज दी वहाँ पे, ड्रोन्स चला दिए, right? So America's war on terror, see now this has been put in quotes, that war on terror, the author does not think it was a war on terror, right? America's war on terror fundamentally challenged sovereignty norms. So it of course challenged the sovereignty of a country. Sovereignty of a country is that within our boundaries we rule, you don't rule, right? So it of course challenged the sovereignty norms through practices like drone strikes and preemptive attacks. They did that. So more recently Israel has also seen कि हम तो कर सकते हैं काफ़ी कुछ, हमने करा है गाज़ा में. So more recently operations in Gaza and elsewhere have demonstrated that violations of international humanitarian law carry limited consequences in practice. So Israel को लग रहा है कि अगर हम humanitarian laws violate कर भी दें तो ज़्यादा कुछ consequences हो नहीं रहे हैं, जैसा कि वो गाज़ा में देख भी रहे हैं, right? For Israel, this permissive environment, when you have excessive freedom, yes, so excessive freedom, an environment marked by excessive freedom. So this permissive environment has seemingly created both opportunity, there is an opportunity right now, and there's also justification regarding striking Iran. Yes, US has done this in the past. Also, they are nuclearizing. Oh, I am threatened as a country, Israel is saying that. Something that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been pursuing for decades. So he wanted precisely this kind of environment, right? Okay, yes, that is being said, that is floating around, of course, that US is in on it, right? Trump left G7, so quite early. So now, let's read this last bit, the last slide. Okay, and then we'll attempt some questions. Yes. So did you read about this when this happened, that they attacked not just this nuclear plant, Russia also attacked Chernobyl. Remember? So this happened in 2024, I believe. So Russia's attacks on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant demonstrated nuclear facilities' vulnerability in modern warfare. But thankfully, the plants remained safe because those backup generators that they had, they actually attacked their electricity network. So however, the backup generators, they got switched on in time. But then this is such a huge risk. Imagine if, let's say, a nuclear disaster happened. So Russia's attacks already demonstrate the vulnerability of nuclear facilities in modern warfare. I believe, so the expert is saying, I believe Israel's actions further risk normalizing attacks on nuclear infrastructure. Okay, so there is a risk that this will become normal, attack somebody's nuclear infrastructure, potentially legitimizing, lending a sort of legitimacy to similar preventive actions by India, China, or the US against emerging nuclear programs elsewhere. That could happen potentially. See, potentially. It could happen in the future. Right? Now this, I have now skipped the middle part here, and this was the conclusion. When preventive strikes become the enforcement mechanism for non-proliferation norms. Norms basically, the rules, not exactly the rules, but the conventions that all the countries are following. So till now, how was non-proliferation enforced? Through things like NPT, through, let's say, an unsaid MAD. But when, preventive strikes, when, you start hitting countries in order to enforce these non-proliferation norms that, dude, don't become a nuclear power, otherwise we'll hit you, right? When that becomes the enforcement mechanism, the entire architecture of nuclear governance begins to crumble, right? You are kind of crumbling this entire architecture, peaceful architecture. Without these frameworks, the world faces an unstable future defined by cycles of preventive strikes. फिर तो कोई भी किसी पे भी अटैक करने लग जाएगा, right? And फिर उससे क्या होगा? There will be accelerated nuclear proliferation, because जो भी न्यूक्लियराइज नहीं है उसको लगेगा कि भाई अटैक होने से बचना है, अगर परमानेंटली थ्रेटन करना है तो become a nuclear power, right? What North Korea understood quite early. Okay, so far more dangerous than the Cold War era standoffs that shaped nuclear governance, right? So, I'm not talking about the earlier Chernobyl disaster. I'm talking about the fact that Russia recently, because Chernobyl is now in North Ukraine, they recently attacked Chernobyl as well. Okay. So, Cold War era, what was Cold War? Tell me. So, a period from the 1947 to 1991, right, wherein, yes, it was an ideological war between communism and capitalism, where communism was represented by the Soviet Union and capitalism by the US. It was a war of influence, but nobody outrightly attacked each other. Okay, and actually it was a peaceful period, relatively peaceful period. Because of what? Because there was this threat that if you attack me, I'll attack you. MAD, mutually assured destruction. So, and then a lot of nuclear treaties, etc. were also signed. Some agreements were signed during this period to ensure that nothing like this ever happens in the future as well, right? So, yes, proxy wars were there. Proxy wars did exist during Cold War era, right? Now, I hope this is clear to you. This article, this particular slide. Yes. Proxy wars were there, absolutely. So, here we are looking at the nuclear angle. If you want to look at as I said, the Middle East angle to it, you can watch this. Now, we know what threshold war is, what a commitment trap is, what are preemptive strikes, preventive strikes. Okay, and with this knowledge, let's launch into the questions, right? So, question 1, what is implied about Israel's long-term strategy toward Iran's nuclear ambitions? So, what is hinted at, implied? Tell me. I've got 3 responses. Okay, 4, 5. All right. So, easy question. Yes. When you eliminate through elimination, this is an easy question. Correct. Okay. Now, let's see why not the others. It says Israel aims to eliminate Iran's nuclear infrastructure permanently through sustained military action. This is incorrect as per my passage, because my passage says that Israel, for its part, cannot permanently eliminate Iran's nuclear knowledge through military means. It can only delay it through means that would seemingly guarantee future Iranian determination to acquire the ultimate deterrent. Okay, so A is incorrect as per my passage. Now, B says Israel is willing to absorb regional backlash. Have we talked about any regional backlash coming Israel's way? So, no, this is alien to the discussion. We haven't talked about any regional backlash, right? Okay. D says Israel expects that international support for its preventive strikes will constrain Iran diplomatically. अभी diplomacy चल रही है. Yes. So, does Israel expect that because we are attacking now, we'll gain international support and that will constrain Iran diplomatically? No, nothing of this sort. That they ultimately expect the action to be diplomatic has been given to us. So this is again alien. Okay. So see, Israel's actions are driven by a belief that delaying Iran's nuclear development is preferable. Because if they did not share this belief, if they did not have this belief that it is preferable, then they would not really attack it right now. They think that it is preferable to direct confrontation when both become nuclear powers. That's why they are doing it. Hence, C. Okay, easy question this one. Now let's see question 2. Why does the author draw a distinction between preventive and preemptive strikes? Okay. Others. Yes. I need more responses. B, C, all right. Okay. A, okay. But primarily it seems, okay, no, A is also emerging gradually. So basically you have eliminated D. Yes, all of you argue that international responses have failed to distinguish between varying types of military action. So why not D? Too broad. International responses have failed to distinguish between varying types of military action. There can be 1,000 types of military action. Yes. So this is too broad to be the answer. I think if we go back, we will find why the author has highlighted this distinction. Okay. More broadly, the Israeli strikes mark a dangerous evolution in international norms around preventive warfare. Right. So there is a dangerous evolution that is happening in international norms. Okay, so then we say that the legal and strategic reality is different. This is not a preemptive strike. Now this second paragraph further extends on this idea that how has Israel been boldened? Why is it so courageous? How is it so courageous? Because there is an erosion of international legal frameworks that has happened that has legitimized preemptive warfare since the US's military action. So the author is mentioning this discussion to show that perhaps countries today are blurring the lines between these two. Yes, they are different, but countries today are blurring the lines, as also shown by US's actions in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yes. So C is the answer here, okay? Not B. Okay, emphasize the moral. Where is the morality part of it? Okay, I thought that B could be eliminated easily. There is no, if you go back, there is no mention of morality, moral norms. We do talk about legitimizing something, right? Making something acceptable, but morality is a different game. Okay, so acceptable, unacceptable, we have blurred the lines between legitimate. See, we see the word legitimize there, legitimate self-defense, because the example given for Israel, this was self-defense, right? This was self-defense. This was indeed preemptive. Okay, whereas this is clearly aggression. This is aggression. So our answer is option C. Okay, now why not A though? Yes. Highlight that Israel's justification for attacking Iran is strategically misleading. Is this not the reason? Hanji. It talks only about Israel. The author is trying to make a larger point about international warfare, right? So this is narrow. It's not incorrect, but this is very narrow. Okay, so that's why it's not the answer. The author is trying to make a broader point there. Okay, more broadly. Start ही वैसे हुआ है हमारा paragraph. So C is the answer. Absolutely correct, Aviral. Too narrow. Okay, the PDF for this, I can perhaps share it on the Rodha only admin group, right? I think that's the only option. Otherwise, for YouTube sessions, the PDFs are not available later on. Okay? But this session will remain. You can watch the recording. Now, question 3 here. What do you say? Strengthen. Okay. All right, I've got A, D, B. Commitment trap. We discussed this. So I'll take you back. I'll take you back there. Okay. So I see a lot of A's. I also see 2 B's, 1 D. So C is something that all of us have eliminated, right? Because if this is the case, then it's not really a commitment trap, isn't it? Then they can back out. Intelligence shows Israeli commanders believe halting strikes might delay. So if that is the belief, that means they can back out from the war, right? So C, good, everybody eliminated. D, let's have a look at this. Iran refused expanded oversight by the International Atomic Energy Agency, citing security threats and Israeli aggression. Is this related to the commitment trap discussion? D. See, what is a commitment trap? It's about two warring sides, right? Both sides face escalating costs, but neither side can step back without accepting an intolerable outcome, right? So that is a commitment trap. So this is not related that it refused expanded oversight by IAEA, citing Israeli aggression. This does not show how the two countries are in a commitment trap. So I think C and D were easy to eliminate in this question. Now, between A and B. B says mediators proposed phased nuclear rollback for Iran. Okay, so somebody is proposing nuclear rollback for Iran in return for security guarantees from Israel and the West. So that means there is a way out, isn't it? There is a way out. There can be a rollback, nuclear rollback for Iran, and then we'll get guarantee that Israel and the West won't attack, or West will also back it that Israel won't attack Iran. So this, yes, it weakens. When there is a way out, it weakens. If Iran's supreme leader declared, so Iran has a supreme leader, right? It's a theocracy. So Iran's supreme leader declared that rolling back its nuclear program would be seen as surrender and betrayal. So this tells me that they cannot back out. Iran can't back out, right? Because it will have to accept an intolerable outcome. And if Iran won't back out, then Israel won't back out, right? So A is the answer here. So this has not been explained to us, Shraddha. It would be seen as a betrayal perhaps to the people of Iran, right? Because they have, striked civilians as well. Israel by now has struck civilians. Hundreds have died in Iran. So if they back now, it will look like they have surrendered. Okay, it will be a betrayal to their own people. Okay. So I hope this is clear why A is the answer. In my opinion, this was easy to moderate. So we have seen one easy question, right? First one was easy. Then here a lot of you were confused. So let's call it moderate. This one is easy to moderate, right? So even when the passage, let's say some of you said that it's a difficult read, it's not necessary that all its questions are going to be difficult, right? Okay, let's come to question 4 then. Let's see what you say. Sujata, we'll meet on Friday now at 5 p.m. So we meet on Wednesdays and Fridays for our editorial analysis sessions at 5 p.m. Okay, all right. So you seem to be a little divided in this question, yes? I'm getting A, B, C, D, almost everything here, right? This has been extracted from The Conversation. It's a news website. The Conversation has formed a part of your CAT. I mean, it has formed a source of your CAT RCs in the previous years. I think in a couple of years this was the case. That's why I took it from The Conversation. Okay, so this one I can see is a slightly difficult question for you, right? So let's see what the answer should be. Now, the answer here is A. Okay, although B is a very, very tempting answer. That's what makes this question a difficult question, right? Now, this is a pure critical reasoning question, okay? The author is claiming that Israel-Iran conflict represents a threshold war, right? What is a threshold war? If we go back, a threshold war is a new and terrifying form of conflict where a nuclear weapons power seeks to use force to prevent an enemy on the verge of nuclearization. See, this is an important condition here. for us to call it a threshold war? On the threshold, this enemy is on the threshold of nuclearization from making, and you are preventing it from making that jump. So now if you say that Iran was not on the threshold of nuclearizing, Iran was not on the threshold of nuclearizing, have you not destroyed this completely, this argument completely, that it's a threshold war? So A is the kind of option that simply doesn't just undermine it, it destroys this argument. Okay, when you say Iran's nuclear activity remains within NPT limits with no verified steps towards weaponization. Okay, so this shows that Iran was perhaps not on the verge of nuclearizing. Now B, I understand. A lot of you would think, but B से भी तो लग रहा है ना कि ये तो nuclear war है ही नहीं, ये as in nuclearization is not the aim. But notice something. Israeli officials admitted the strikes mainly targeted Iran's proxy forces. So Iran has this axis of resistance, right? Militants, basically. These are militants. Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah, right? These militants are present in various countries, and they are primarily focused on the spreading Islamism, the following Islam in politics, in governance of a state, and they are all anti-US, right? So that's the point. Anyway, Israeli officials admitted the strikes mainly targeted Iran's proxy forces, not its nuclear facilities. Okay, fine. Maybe that was the aim. But do these have to be mutually exclusive? That if they are targeting Iran's proxy forces, then, this cannot be the hidden agenda at all. Also, it says mainly targeted Iran's proxy forces. ऐसा नहीं है only targeted Iran's proxy forces, right? So, mainly ठीक है वो इसको target कर रहे हैं, but that may not, kind of refute the underlying claim that yes, Iran is nuclearizing. ये होने के बाद भी ईरान इज न्यूक्लियराइजिंग रहता है कि हाँ वो कर रहा है, पर ए में तो वो ही डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया कि ईरान इज न्यूक्लियराइजिंग. डू यू गेट दिस? वाई ए ओवर बी? We'll discuss C and D as well. Okay, C says intelligence reports say Iran is at least a decade away from building a nuclear weapon. So that's what the author discussed when the author said that this is a preventive war. Now, if it is at least a decade away from building a nuclear weapon, I understand that it slightly does weaken, but does it weaken as effectively as A does? The author has acknowledged this, that this is a preventive war because there may not have been any immediate threat. There wasn't an imminent threat. Okay, the author has acknowledged this, first of all. Secondly, this is saying, okay, the nuclearization is far away, whereas A is saying that nuclearization is not happening. So that is why C is not weakening it as effectively as A is doing it. Right? It could be a decade away, but if it is nuclearizing, and when we say on the threshold of something, how do we define that threshold also matters. Maybe in nuclear power development, 10 years is not a significant amount of time because it takes a lot of time to become a nuclear power, right? Okay, B, yes, definitely. If Israeli officials are admitting this, first of all, they are admitting this, that the strikes mainly targeted Iran's militant forces. They were not really, mainly वो nuclear facilities की तरफ targeted नहीं थी. Main aim ये नहीं था. The point is main aim नहीं था, पर secondary aim तो हो सकता है. पहली चीज़ तो ये. दूसरी चीज़ ये कि ठीक है, उन्होंने ओवर्टली नहीं मतलब डायरेक्टली नहीं अटैक किया न्यूक्लियर फैसिलिटीज़ को, बट दैट डजंट डिनाई द फैक्ट दैट ईरान मे बी एक्टिवली न्यूक्लियराइजिंग. ये पॉसिबिलिटी तो रहती है ना इसके बाद भी. सो ईरान है थ्रेशोल्ड पे, तो थ्रेशोल्ड तो एग्जिस्ट करता है ना यहाँ पर ऑप्शन बी में. ए में थ्रेशोल्ड ही एग्जिस्ट नहीं कर रहा. दैट्स द पॉइंट. D says the strikes were backed by allies who support Middle East non-proliferation efforts. Okay, so these strikes were backed by whom? People who support non-proliferation efforts. right? So does that undermine the author's claim that it represents a threshold war? First of all, tell me that. The strikes had the backing of some allies who support Middle East non-proliferation efforts. Fine, they backed it, but we don't know why they backed it. What was the reason? Primarily this itself, because Middle East's geopolitics, international relations, they are very complicated, and even if that was the case, it would not really undermine the fact that it is a threshold war, right? It could still be a threshold war, right? So just a second, if they were backed by, all right, yes, they could, although it's not very relevant, but it could go in the direction of supporting it. You are right. If their aims are well established, then it could support, it would not weaken. Absolutely, yes, thank you for pointing that out, Natasha. Although अभी हमें नहीं पता उनके क्या मोटिव्स हैं, पर अगर वो एस्टैब्लिश हो भी जाते हैं तो ये सपोर्ट करेगा, ये वीकन नहीं करेगा. एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. So I hope this is clear. I think the two close options here were A and B, and this was indeed a challenging question. So my effort was to include questions of all difficulty levels, easy to moderate, difficult, right? So hope this helped, and I was really keen on discussing this current topic with you. If you go back to the previous editorial analysis sessions, in various sessions I have discussed Russia, Ukraine. I have also discussed Israel, Gaza with you, Israel, Iran. We have discussed the Middle East. So I try that I discuss all the recent developments. We have also discussed tariffs. So yes, you can just go and watch those sessions, and I'll see you next on Friday at 5 p.m. Okay? All right. Definitely, Onyx. Welcome. Things to read every day, Natasha. You have to read from international sources. In fact, in editorial analysis 5, just hunt for editorial analysis 5. Editorial analysis की ना एक playlist है, ठीक है, इस पे रोधा पर. उसमें 5th में मैंने सारे इंटरनेशनल सोर्सेज मेंशन करे हैं जो आपकी कैट आरसीज के सोर्सेज हैं इन द पास्ट 5 years. सो डेफिनेटली यू हैव टू रीड देम. ओके, all right, Aviral, I'll try that. Thank you so much for attending. It was fun teaching you all. I'll see you on Friday now at 5 p.m. Bye.